In the Philippines, it is a common sight to see children either begging for alms on the street or inhaling solvents. Some of these children are involved in criminal activities either because of poverty or because they are forced by members of syndicates. These syndicates know that the authorities cannot fully punish children for crimes committed, and therefore to them, children are expendable, especially those who are below the age of 15.
Meron tayong batas na nangangalaga mismo sa mga children in conflict with the law. Ito yung batas noong 2006 na naaprubahan na tinatawag nating Juvenile Justice Welfare Act or ang Republic Act 9344.
In 2010, it was reported that there were 1,200 cases of juvenile delinquency. Because of the rising number of criminal activities involving children, many have demanded that the age of children in conflict with the law, or CICL, be lowered from 15 to 13 years old, meaning children under 15 years old shall be exempted from criminal liability but will be subjected to an intervention program by the government. In October 2013, the President signed into law RA 10630, amending the Juvenile Justice System and Welfare Act of 2006. The minimum age for criminal liability remained at age 15.
DSWT po sa pangkalahatan, kapag ang bata po ay na-turn over sa amin mula po sa Women and Children's Desk Division, pansamantala po ang lahat po ng munisipalidad ay mayroong tinatawag po nating bahay pag-asa o yung pansamantalang mapapaglagakan sa mga minor na nagkakasala po sa batas.
Under the law, CICLs will be tried accordingly with all of their rights protected, and they will be assigned to a social service officer who shall determine which appropriate programs the CICL should attend in the hopes of reintegrating the child to society. With the amended juvenile justice law, how has it lowered the number of crimes involving children? How does the law protect children in conflict with the law? And what are the programs designed by the government to help these children develop properly into useful members of society? Good evening. You are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, what you need to know as a parent to prevent your child from engaging in criminal activities, and what you need to do to ensure that the rights of your child or a child you know who is in conflict with the law is protected.
Our guests for tonight are Judge Elissa Sarmiento Flores of Pasig Regional Trial Court, Branch 71, and Ms. Nanette Repalpa, Outreach Program Manager of the Verlani Foundation.
Good evening, Judge Elissa.
And thank
Welcome
you for
again.
being with us, ladies.
Welcome back, and Nanette.
Yes.
Great to be back.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Now, we see this all the time, no? When we drive around, and the scenes that we saw earlier in the tape, no? We see all these children running around, but sometimes we face it, but we really don't know what to do. But before we go ahead and discuss the wonderful work you're doing in the foundation, maybe we can have a definition on what exactly is juvenile delinquency.
And I think they can clarify as well, because Rod, actually, we've met before, Ms. Ilani. I was doing volunteer work before with children in conflict with the law. And when I was starting as well, yun yung something we had to correct from the start, because a lot of people still refer to these people or these children as children or juvenile delinquents. Yes. So maybe you can start off, ladies, by explaining bakit dapat hindi na gamitin yung word na juvenile delinquents.
Well, first of all, what we have right now is the term children in conflict with the law. It's no longer juvenile delinquent, because it's kind of branding. The politically correct term is children in conflict with the law, which means that a child is alleged, accused, or adjudged to have committed a crime under the laws of the Philippines. Okay. So basically, sinasabi, inaakusahan, at saka nahatulan. So that's the proper way to, the proper term nowadays, CICL, or children in conflict with the law.
Okay. No, yes, ma'am.
I think for us also, it's better na ganun nga ang pagtawag sa kanila, children in conflict with the law, because the stigma of being a delinquent child is more like mas malalim ang impact sa bata. Pag
Ngayon, just say you juvenile. Parang
Yes,
it's
juvenile.
Immediate.
Juvie.
Diba? So now that's the correct term.
Yes.
So is this, what are the pertinent points? Are this one of the changes that this law that was signed in 2015? Is this one of the pertinent points of changing the terminology?
Well, actually, way back 2006 when RA 9344 took effect, the terminology is children in conflict with the law. Now, when there are amendments in 10630, the recent one last October, the amendment was really not so much about the law itself, but the aftercare services.
Yes.
If you would notice, before, the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council was under the control or the supervision of the Department of Justice. But right now, it's with the DSWD.
Alright.
Because we're more on aftercare
Aftercare.
services.
And maybe Verlani Foundation and other foundations, is that something that is part of the law, that DSWD is required to work with other NGOs and foundations?
Actually, since we have very few rehabilitation centers or like centers who can accommodate children in conflict with the law, this is the reason why we established one halfway home. But then still we have difficulty in maintaining our residential facility for CICL kasi nga yung limited yung mga funding. And then aside from that, it's stated and mandated also by that law na kailangan susuportahan ang mga NGOs who are catering for CICL. But apparently, hindi po na ipapatupad yung
You mean
ganun.
the mandate under the law is that the government should allot a budget to support yung mga NGOs
Exactly po. May
para
provision po talaga.
makapagbigay ng mga housing and
rehabilitation program.
after court service, meaning
after
pagtapos na yung
care,
kaso, aftercare services.
Like yung maintenance po
ensure.
nila, like for example, yung sa food, sana man lang. Pero hindi po yun na i-implement.
So nangyayari ngayon, it's privately funded? Is that-
Exactly.
But
okay.
I mean, Rod, ako rin, I'd like to share para naging partner naman. When I was
we need to
working with children in conflict with the law, I represented them in court and also I visited them inside prisons. And I think I'm curious then sa RA 10630, nagawa na ba na solution yan to ensure that they are not mixed with adults? Because I know nung panahon ko before, wala pa yung 10630 when I was doing this volunteer work, meron ng law that says they should not be imprisoned along with adults, but it was not implemented. So every time I would visit yung mga children in conflict
They were
with the
there.
law that
They
I
were
was
there.
helping,
They were
kasama talaga sila and they would sleep standing up, they would sleep in
Yes.
the toilets, or hindi rin sila nakakain kasi inaagawan sila ng mga older inmates. So,
By shifting po yung
would you know,
pagdulog.
you're currently directly involved working with them sa
Actually
Verlani
po,
Foundation. Nahiwalay na ba sila?
There are some precincts po na actually according to our law enforcer, they don't have a choice but to put them all together kasi they don't have the facility to accommodate the children. But then we see to it na especially the DSWD really check on the precincts na hindi talaga sila dapat doon kasama ng mga adult offenders.
Now, are there
Judge Elissa,
classifications?
I think, has ano dun.
Yeah. Actually, under the law, 9344 pa lang, wala pa yung amendment. It's already provided that children, immediately upon initial contact, pa lang ng police officer, once they are taken into custody, 8 hours, within 8 hours, kailangan bibigay na sa social welfare and development officer.
Within 8 hours.
Regardless of the crime.
Is this being followed naman?
Well, that is the concern. That is the concern. That is why during our last meeting with the PNP, because there will be a nationwide campaign regarding laws concerning women and children, and 9344 and 10630 would be part of this nationwide campaign. This will be pushed talaga.
Now, what
Kailangan
are
ma-implement.
are there classifications of, dati may classifications of delinquency, but now there are classifications of children in conflict with the law? May mga classifications ba yan?
Well, actually,
the type of
yes.
perpetrators they are?
What we have right now is two kinds. One is children above 15, below 18. Of course, they acted with discernment. And they committed the crime, which is 6 years and below ang imposable penalty. So that classification, they will undergo diversion. But those who are children above 15, below 18, acted with discernment, and committed crimes with an imposable penalty of more than
more than
6
6
years.
Can you give examples, Judge Elissa?
Yes, okay. Masyadong technical, ano? Okay, halimbawa, nagnakaw ng tinapay. Okay, the value is very minimal. It's theft. So, below 6 years ang parusa sa kanya. So, imbes na idalan agad siya sa ikulong siya, sampahan siya ng kaso, gagawan siya ng papasok siya sa diversion proceedings provided that he's qualified.
What is diversion proceedings? Maybe.
Well,
I mean,
diversion
clarify.
is an alternative process, no court proceedings, wherein the child would have to be restored. You know, restorative justice tayo sa 9344 eh. And it involves yung bata pwede ng, well, rehabilitate is, I don't want to use it eh. But more on, you would help the child to understand what he did was wrong, and then
Is that,
you want to
is
restore
that just a matter of talking to him?
No, it's not like that, because there will be programs for the child. And also, may mga reparation of damages, babayaran mo. So there are factors to be considered. That's one classification. But if the child committed an offense which is above 6 years ang parusa, like for instance, robbery, rape, murder, homicide, 5 ng drugs, okay? So, ang gagawin sa kanya, may court proceedings na yun.
This is between 15 to 18, di ba?
Yes.
Yes, we
With
can
discernment.
discuss that as opposed to yung mga below 15 naman. And it's a good thing na Judge Elissa brought up yung pagkakaiba ng offenses, because some people are saying naman na ginagamit na excuse yung mga bata, lalo na ng mga syndicates, to commit grave offenses. So we'll discuss that after the break. We still have a lot to discuss with our guest. Legal Help Desk will return after these messages. You're still tuned in to Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel with our guests, Judge Elissa Sarmiento Flores and Ms. Nanette Repalpa of the Verlani Foundation.
Okay.
And
well,
kanina,
yeah.
Judge Elissa was discussing yung differences nga na if you're 15 and 15 to 18 pero depende sa crime that you commit, you can either undergo diversion proceedings or actual court proceedings. And my question to both of you ladies is that a lot of people still also believe na this law is being used as a loophole for commission of grave offenses by using kids that have special treatment under the law. I guess pag 10 years old, obvious na bata pa yan. Pero pag 15 kasi, you know, a lot of them
May
act
alam na.
like adults as well. Iba very professional na. So, how do you ensure that this law is not being abused by, definitely by syndicates or even those na malapit na sa age of majority?
Yes. Right now, in 10630, in RA 10630, there's already a provision that if a child will be used by any person or any syndicate to commit an offense, definitely the abuser or the syndicate would have the maximum penalty of what was committed. This is different. That is the difference between the old law kasi walang provision na ganon. Now, insofar as children, I know the concern of our viewers, yung mga 12 to 15 kasi they have no criminal liability. They are exempted from criminal liability. Now, under 10630, if they are 12 to 15, there is definitely they are exempted from incurring criminal liability. There is the so-called provision that they would have to go to Bahay Pag-asa.
It's mandatory.
Yes, it's already mandatory in cases wherein they commit serious offenses.
Bahay Pag-asa is just one, or is it all over the
It's
country?
going to be all over the country, pero sabi ko nga,
big cities.
medyo wait muna tayo kasi it was just amended October of 2013. So ngayon pa
Wala
lang
pa yun.
nagko-form ng budget, pero meron na daw na budget. And then tama yung sabi ni Nan kanina na yung mga cities titingnan kung ano yung maraming mga CICL. Yun ang mga priority na lugar.
But in the meantime, Nanette, in your experience, saan dinadala yung mga bata if they're 12 to 15?
Sa ngayon po kasi 'di ba yung DSW natin, they have reception and action centers. So doon sila dinadala. But then kung nakita nila na hindi pwede at like the we always see to it na yung best interest of the child is being served. So kung nakita natin that they are like mas delikado sa kanilang ibalik sila sa community nila, they will be referred to like an NGO like Verlani for temporary shelter in case na hindi naman mapupurso yung case. Like for example, those children below 15 years old. And then, but it's difficult for us to parang to justify, especially to the victims.
Yes.
Parang how can we rehabilitate
Napakahirap.
them? Parang paano namin i-justify na we will say, ensure na they will be rehabilitated or make sure na kailangan mapagsilbihan nila kung ano man yung nagawa nila. Parang they will be accountable to the offenses that they have committed.
But this is very useful information because for viewers out there, if you, for instance, kunwari if you're the owner of a sari-sari store or a grocery store, tapos may nag-shoplift na below 15, ang impulse bale na initial reaction would be call the police, papa-arestuhin mo, tatakutin mo na papa-aresto kita, papahuli kita.
Yes.
But this is something that now viewers out there, you have to be clarified on na they have no criminal liability pag below 15 because they're exempted from criminal liability. But for viewers out there, kanino naman nila dapat i-report pag ganon? Because obviously, may kasalanan pa rin yung bata.
So, what happens is that when there's a reporting, kasi ito ngayon yung problema rin hindi na iba-blatter yung mga CICL na below 15 kasi sinasabi nila wala namang criminal liability. But under 10-630, mandatory na yan.
Okay,
Blatter.
so people can insist. Dapat they have to tell the police,
Blatter.
kailangan i-blatter nyo kung anong ginawa.
And then immediately, the law enforcement officer or di kaya yung barangay tanod, kailangan ibigay pa rin sa DSW, sa local social welfare and development officer yung bata for the appropriate community-based intervention program. So, iba yung intervention sa
Iba ba yun?
diversion.
Okay.
Can the parents of the offender insist na
Bigay sa
wag ibigay yung bata dun sa social developer worker at isoli sa kanila?
Now, this is the distinction. In 9344 kasi, walang evaluation, walang initial assessment yung local social welfare and development officer. But right now, before a child would be released by the LSWDO to the parent, kailangan may initial assessment muna ng LSWDO. Kasi sabi nga ni Ms. Nanette kanina, baka mamaya hindi safe ibalik sa community. So it's better that the best interest of the child should be in the custody of the LSWDO.
Now, as I was going through the law, and then if you produce over it, there are certain rights for a child, right? His right should be read to him. He should not be detained for a certain period. He has the right not to be charged of perjury for perjury. What are the pertinent changes, or I guess what are the differences between his rights and the rights of a typical accused judge?
Okay, so alam nyo, hindi pwedeng i-handcuff ang CICL.
There you go.
Bawal yan. So, if and when there is resistance from the child and kailangan gamitan, kailangan naka-take down pa yan sa report, sa initial investigation ng ating police officer. What else? Itong ating mga CICL, you have to be child-friendly in talking with them. Hindi pwedeng yung the
Hindi pwede yung
usual
parang-
kasi ang mga police may ID yan. Sa likod ng ID, you have the right, you have to explain it in a language known to the child, understood by the child. What else? Hindi pwede na imbestigahan yung bata without the presence of the parent,
The guardian.
di kaya LSWDO or NGO. Kailangan meron yan. What else? Yun nga, hindi sila, at ang term is not detained, not arrested, but in custody.
In custody.
In custody.
Okay. Yun
Yes.
dapat,
So if you are a parent of a child who got into trouble, tapos one, na-blotter nga, and then they're required to undergo either diversion proceedings or case proceedings. And you notice all of these violations na during the trial, hinandcuff, or hindi ino-observe yung mga rights nga ng bata, who can you report that to naman? Because obviously, kung kinocommit yan in court, pinapayagan in court or ng law enforcement officers, who can they complain to?
Okay. Merong provision at the end of 9344 that if and when there are violations of the provisions of 9344, the corresponding penalty is 8 to 10 years of imprisonment. Yes.
Mabigat yan.
That is always what I tell the police officers, our prosecutors, and our judges when I give talks about this law. Kasi hindi lang yun sa mga ordinaryong tao, even us could be subjected to 8 to 10 years of imprisonment if we would violate any provision of 9344 or 10630 at that.
So parang kulang sa information campaign, no?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, we have some questions from our viewers. Carla is asking, in some cities, they have issued ordinances forbidding children from begging for alms. Can this be considered an offense, and can children caught begging be detained for it?
Good question.
Hindi, ang begging kasi is not a criminal offense. They cannot be charged of yung dahil sa pagpapalimos. But then, mendicancy kasi is not allowed, but then they cannot be charged of that. Kasi it can be considered as a status offense
correct.
po. Status offense, the children cannot be charged with the status offense.
But if you're an adult, it's an offense under the revised penal code, right?
Yung mendicancy.
Yung
Mendicancy.
paglimos, yung pagtatambay-tambay sa kalye. But paano yung mga bata na ang nag-uutos sa kanila maglimos ay either their parents or syndicates? Kasi nakikita ko yan sometimes, may maglilimos. As soon as bigyan mo, makita mo, tatakbo, iaabot dun sa mother na nandun lang sa
But
gilid.
these adults can be charged as child exploitation naman po. Under PD 603 naman po, di ba, Judge?
Tsaka hindi, pwedeng kargahan natin na mas mabigat, 7610.
77.
Kasi
mas mabigat yun.
abuse, child abuse yun eh.
For the parents na
Yes,
binibig.
parent
Okay.
and also
Pero
the
for
syndicate.
those who observe kids na nandilimos, you cannot report them to the police to have them arrested.
Pwedeng siguro ay custody na parang
Rescue.
rescue mission ng local social welfare and development office.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. It's a really different mindset. no?
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of offenders, victims. Our next question is from Nida. What are the common causes for children to commit a crime? Can they be held responsible for their crimes if they were victims of crime syndicates?
Well, ang hirap i-prove, Judge, no?
Yes,
Yung these
Nanette.
children are being used by syndicates. Kasi so far, wala pa po talagang nahuhuli or napapatunayan na they are under the custody of the syndicate. So far, wala pa kami pong...
That's the usual thought process, though, of people who
Pero
are...
so far, wala pa talagang evidence talaga. But then, ang palagi nilang justification, they are being used by syndicates. Pero ang hirap hanapin. At yung sinasabi po na they will be held liable, yung nasa amended ngayon na batas. So, nahihirapan po tayong hanapin kung saan
Correct.
natin. Although may
But do you
provision na
find,
ganun.
Nanette, na totoong wala talaga kasing connection sa syndicates or mahirap lang i-prove?
Mahirap i-prove.
But there are parang may connection minsan.
Oh yeah, meron talaga. Kasi like yung mendicancy. In our jurisdiction, when I was still a prosecutor, may ibababang isang jeep, may ibababang isang batalyon na
Ay.
mga mag-iina.
Oo.
Tapos susunduin sila.
Kaya pala nagtataka ako. Minsan,
sistema
you're
talaga.
in an upscale metro city, kunwari, tapos nasa intersection ka, magtataka ka, bakit nandito yung mga, wala ka namang makitang mga,
Pwedeng daanan nila.
or wala kang makitang squatters area. So nagtataka ako, paano sila umabot
they get
dito?
there?
Yes.
But yung
Yeah.
pala,
Yes.
hinahakot.
All right.
Okay.
Wow. Well, anyway, Bea wants to know, what is the proper process for children to be held or detained by authorities? I think we were discussing this earlier. What if the child is violent and causes harm to the police or social worker? Kasi lalo na pag 15 years
yeah.
old, medyo malakas na rin yan.
Yes,
no?
yes, of
may
course.
ano na rin yan. No? So,
Yes. Like for instance, if the CICL is already violent, that is the time that he could be restrained. But the restraint should not be more than what is necessary.
hindi handcuff.
Well, pwedeng
Pwede
na siyang i-handcuff.
Pwede.
But there should be a report there why the CICL was handcuffed. Like for instance, sinapok yung police,
Yung police.
tinadyakan yung police, so he has to be restrained. So that is the justification of the police officer. That is for the protection of the law enforcement officer.
Okay.
Thank you. Very enlightening discussion so far.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. We'll take another short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. This is Buboy, not his real name. Last year, he was detained by the barangay police for getting into a fight with another boy.
December 24, 2013. Lumabas po ako ng bahay noon. Sabay, meron pong dumaan na isang lalaki. Tapos binangga niya po ako. Parang kinukursinada niya po ako noon. Parang nagdidim na po yung paningin ko sa kanya. Binugbog ko po siya. Sabay nung meron ng dumaan na barangay, nahanap daw po ako. Sabay dinampot na lang po ako. Inano po ako sa barangay, pinag-stay po ako hanggang sa tawagin yung magulang. Hindi po nila tinawag sa may DSWD. Pinaglinis po ako ng kubeta. Pinag-squat po ako, sabay nung umaga na po, pinakanta po akong Bayang Magiliw.
Ang mga barangay po kasi natin ay may tinatawag po tayong Barangay Council Protection for the Children. Masasabi nating may kakulungan dahil hindi tama yung ibinigay na intervention doon sa nagkasalang bata kay Buboy. Maganda siguro kung ito ay na-turn over sa amin para nabigyan namin ng mas magandang proseso o yung intervention natin na tinatawag at the same time hindi doon matatapos yung pagmamonitor sa kanya.
Though Buboy's experience with barangay authorities is frowned upon, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has made it one of their priorities to give proper training to barangay-level officials the process of handling cases of children in conflict with the law or CICL. As for Buboy, he has one thing to say about his ordeal as a juvenile delinquent.
Namin ko din po, may pagkakamali din naman po ako sa sarili ko. Mahirap po talagang kahit makulong po na isang araw, napakahirap po. Wala pong nakukulong na hindi umiiyak.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel with our guests, Judge Elissa Sarmiento Flores and Ms. Nanette Repalpa of the Verlani Foundation.
Yeah, very sad case study na that we have.
But if you were the parents, kunwari naman, yung dun sa binugbog ni Buboy, you will also understand why you will report that incident and try to, lalo na kung hindi mo alam yung bago nating laws, you will try to have the Buboy arrested.
Yeah, in that case, kasi 70 years old. So, it's,
70 years
medyo baka
May discernment na.
One, may discernment. And two, baka pagkamala mo na 18 na siya. Or
Yes,
hindi
but
too hard.
the proper step should have been like this. The barangay tanod, okay, takes custody of the CICL, the 17 years old. And then, turn over siya sa police. And then the police turn over sa LSWDO for the determination of discernment. Because it's not automatic.
Yes.
It has to be determined first.
Yeah, how do you determine that, Judge?
Well, there are sets of questions. There's a checklist given by the central office, the SWD, which is downloaded to the LGUs. So that will be used by the local social welfare and development officer. And then pag na-determine na may discernment, babalik uli sa police, and the police officer would have to conduct diversion. Imagine, police officer to conduct diversion. But in the law itself, the barangay itself, the lupon, under katarungan pambarangay could conduct diversion also. In the case of Buboy, there should be diversion. Hindi dapat kinulong.
So in this case,
kinakanta ng
can the
bayang
parents,
ng lupang hinirang. Yes.
So can the
wala namang
parents
masama
of Buboy
doon
complain?
sa pagkanta, pero
Wala namang masama.
pero
Kaya
I think they were making fun of it, mocking him.
So if you were the parents of Buboy here, ano yung pwede mo namang remedy for what happened to
Well, they
Buboy?
could file criminal charges against the barangay kagawad who did that. Or barangay tanod who did that.
Yung pinalinis siya and
Yes,
pinasquat siya eh.
pinasquat siya. Remember,
Corporal
we do
punishment.
not administer cruelty, punishment. That is again a violation of 9344. So ang dami ng violation ni Sir. Sunod-sunod na siya.
But when we talk about more serious crimes, I sometimes hear sa news mga offenders na rape, below
Yes.
15 na.
Yes.
How does one, for instance, Verlani Foundation and the criminal system deal with these types of offenses? Very,
Mga heinous na konti.
oo, di ba?
Oo.
Sa amin kasi, yung under our rehabilitation program, as much as possible, non-heinous offenses ang kinikater namin kasi
Non-heinous.
Apo, yung lesser use offenses kasi ang hirap naming makipag-arrange sa mga complainants na ibigay sa amin yung custody ng bata. So, sa bagay na yan po, yung below 15 years old, hindi namin hinahandle yung cases na gano'n. Kasi under the DSWD talaga. Kasi maraming kaming kalaban pag
Oo. Tama yung sabi ni Net kasi before I used to also help Parenting Foundation na they also want to cater for CICL. But
foster family,
yes, for a foster family. Kaya lang ang concern nila is they cannot help those who have committed heinous or serious offenses. Kasi nga, natatakot din yung foster parent.
Lalo na if you have
Oo,
children,
if you have
your own
children also.
diba?
So the matter is addressed by DSWD. Especially right now that we have Bahay Pag-asa na what I've said a while ago caters to 12 to 15 years old na ang tinatawag nga ay intensive, parang may ICU sila sa Bahay Pag-asa for serious offense na nakomit ng 12 to 5 years old.
Now, in situations where, as we were talking about it earlier, no, repeat offenders, or what we would call adults, recidivists, who always, parang nahulin siya before, and then, yun nga, went through the process of diversion and all that, is released back to the public
community.
and then does it again. You know, how do you handle situations like that?
Okay.
Yeah.
If the child is 12 to 15, yung pinag-uusapan natin ni Net kanina, at paulit-ulit siya na mag-commit ng offense, syempre wala siyang criminal liability. Ang gagawin ngayon sa kanya is magkakaroon na ng, kumbaga para i-commit na siya. Yung DSWD, declare siya na abandoned, neglected child sa korte para yung custody sa kanya bigay na sa DSWD. Now, for those children who are above 15, below 18, who acted with discernment, definitely if diversion already failed, they can be charged for that similar offense, for the offense na dinivert
They can
sila.
be charged already?
Yes, they could be
As an
charged
adult?
already.
Charged as adult?
No.
Still,
Minor
no.
pa rin.
Minor
May
pa rin.
special,
May
yeah.
special
Which means,
considerations pa
in
rin.
terms of yung mga imprisonment, na may mitigate, meaning binababaan yung
Binababa,
prison sentence.
and at
Pwedeng
the
isuspend po
yes,
agad.
suspended sentence, and at the same time, they will not be placed in a detention cell.
So there's no instance where a child below 18 can be tried in the same manner as an adult? No exception?
No. Family court sila.
All right. Okay, we still have a couple of questions, this time from our viewers. Nati. Nati asked, my son was sexually assaulted by a minor. I filed a case against the boy, but it was dismissed by the court. What should be my next step?
Oh.
Tama ba yung pagka-dismiss, Judge?
Well, there are kinds of sexual abuse. Pero definitely, kung minor yan, it cannot be under 7610 because 7610 is committed by an adult to a minor. So, sabihin na lang natin that it falls under the revised penal code like acts of lasciviousness. Pag acts of lasciviousness, ang penalty niyan 6 years and below. So, ang mangyayari dyan, baka na diversion. Baka yun yung interpretation ni ma'am na na-dismiss yung kaso. But it's actually a diversion process. Now, there are two kinds of rape. One is object rape and the other one is the insertion ng organ na nga. Dun sa object rape, ang penalty doon is prison major, which is 6 years and 1 day to 12 years. So, i-count mo yung privilege mitigating, prison correctional na naman bababa yun. So pag nag-prison correctional siya, pwede naman na
Diversion proceedings ulit.
pwede siyang i-diversion kasi sa court pag above 6 years, below 12 years, pwede mag-diversion ng court. So those are the possible two cases na na-filean.
We have another question from Twitter. User Lay asked, can a minor be tried as an adult and be imprisoned with other hardened criminals? What are the circumstances that this could happen? Para ako, I can answer na, yes, it happens. Because I've witnessed it personally. Nakapasok ako dun sa mga dun sa mga prison cells, na nakita ko talagang mixed together yung mga bata and adults. But maybe now, can we confidently say that this no longer happens? Nanette?
Siguro po talagang we tried. I mean, the DSWD is trying their best na talagang alisin yung ganong sitwasyon. Pero hindi po siguro natin masasabi na zero na talaga. Kasi sa sitwasyon nga ngayon, nakulang talaga ng facility. Pero definitely po, hindi talaga dapat sila i-mix sa adults.
So I guess Judge Elissa will say, under the law, hindi pwede.
Pero
but
meron pa rin.
because
Kasi
kulang.
hindi sa kulang kundi ang dami pa rin hindi nakakaintindi sa batas na to.
Sa implementation.
Oo, sa implementation.
Pero yung mga overage, pwede na i-mix.
Actually,
Pag
there's still a question.
pag-abutan na, because sometimes you were imprisoned at 16 instead of 17, biglang 18 ka na, hindi pa tapos yung kaso.
Well, actually, that's
nasa youth center pa din po sila.
Youth center pa rin sila.
Center pa rin. Okay. All right. And finally, from Troy, will records of the child's past mistakes follow him through adulthood? What if he decides to go to college or apply for work? Will these be used against him, even if there's no criminal liability? Will that be?
Definitely.
Well, good news for you, Troy. Your records are sealed and confidential. So you will not be liable for perjury if you would tell them that you do not have any criminal past.
So very
All right.
useful information
Yeah, that's
to
a good question.
either parents out there or those of you who had past offenses when you were below 18. As Judge Elissa advised here, you don't have to disclose that. So kahit damaging, no? Tapos sinabi doon. Paano ma'am pag visa applications? Because that's to a foreign government. Will you still be probably held liable? Because usually, if you're applying for visas, they require you kahit if you were charged, ganyan, you have to declare. If you don't declare, will you be probably held liable?
Well, confidential yung records. They cannot open it. It's sealed.
I see. Okay. All
Okay.
right. So that's
So very helpful,
That's
enlightening.
yung protection po ng minor. Yun
Protection,
yung isa
best
sa mga
interest of the
rights
child.
Now, just to clarify, a couple of questions. We have a few minutes left. Just to clarify for our viewers, what is the difference of diversion and intervention? Just to clarify.
So, intervention basically is the proceeding used if children has no criminal liability. So, parang ang gagawin sa kanya is he has to be restored also. Kumbaga, para hindi na siya mag-commit ng offense uli.
Ito yung mga below 15.
Yes, ito yung mga below 15. Wala silang criminal liability, but they would have to be under intervention. Mas maganda community-based para aware ng community kung ano nangyayari sa kanya.
And what happens there in intervention?
And in intervention, may mga life skills. Yung iba, nag-alternative learning schools. Yung iba, may anger management. Ngayon, in contrast naman with diversion, there is admission of guilt. But that admission of guilt cannot be used in court. Kumbaga, remorse, tinuturuan yung bata na magsisi. And also, meron doon na reparation of damages, restitution. So, meron kang measure para kahit papano maibsan din naman yung complainant. Both are for restorative justice, but intervention, no criminal liability and CICL, diversion, meron pa rin.
And just to clarify to our guests there, kunwari, shoplifting, yung restitution, kailangan isole nung minor offender yung ninakaw niya. And kung parents ka, kailangan mong pagbayaran yung damages na ginawa ng anak mo kung may nasirang property.
Now, can you, well, there's no criminal liability, but can you file a civil case?
Yes. Civil liable.
So, hindi na nahungulugan na just because below 18 ay wala ng pananagutan.
Yes.
So,
Yun yung
parents might have
misconception.
to pay for property damage or kung may hospital expenses.
Yes.
Kung yung nabugbog ni Buboy dun sa case study, they'd have to pay. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank our guests, Judge Elissa Sarmiento Flores and Ms. Nanette Repalpa, Outreach Program Manager of the Verlani Foundation, for being with us tonight and for shedding light on this topic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, and Legal Help Desk will return after this short break.
Okay.
Welcome back to Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel.
Yeah, that was certainly informative. No, it's something very close to your heart.
Yes,
Itong,
because I did personally
children,
pro bono volunteer work and I've met Nanette before. Years ago, I was surprised nga nung siya yung dumating dito kanina kasi sabi, remember me? And you know, I've seen personally yung conditions ng mga children in conflict with the law. And
I can imagine it's really
I
bad.
think under our new laws, especially the one that was signed last 2013, it really views the children more than offenders, really as victims then. Because you know, Rod, pag
Rightly
makita
so.
mo yung conditions nitong mga bata rin, I've really visited yung mga homes nila sa parents, you'll find out why they end up in this kind of life because you have parents that are either neglectful, they don't get to go to school talaga, so they end up being with the wrong people or in the wrong environment. So
Yeah.
I think it's good that the law is now geared towards how do we take these children out of these types of situations.
Yeah, and so I think it's important to note that there are two numbers lang to really remember, which is 15 and 18. No? Si Judge Elissa was very clear with it, between 15 to 18, all right, there cannot be any, below 18 basically, below 18, generally there's no criminal liability.
Yes, and there's a difference.
The difference,
Pagka below 15, they're really exempt
Really
from
exempt.
criminal liability. So for those of you out there, siguro this is very enlightening because sometimes if you're the victim of some crime, for instance, na pickpocket kayo at pagkahuli,
Nahuli
bata
niya.
pala, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, then don't expect na mapapakulong niyo yung bata. But don't expect din naman siguro na, don't be jaded na they can get away with it. Because again, the law will try to restore them or to make them useful citizens by making them undergo intervention proceedings, which means that they will try to be corrected and they will have to undergo proceedings that will make sure that they recognize na mali yung ginawa nila and that they won't be mixed with actual criminals para hindi rin sila makapagkilala ng mga criminals while they're in
Yeah,
prison,
baka
tapos
grumabe.
lalo pang grumabe yung
Yeah.
maging criminals pa sila lalo in the future. But if the offender is between 15 and below 18, then they're still minors, which means they cannot be tried as adults. But merong distinction. If they commit a crime that is punishable by an offense of over 6 years, kunwari, murder, yun, they will undergo what you call case court proceedings na kasi they won't qualify for diversion proceedings. But for minor offenses, katulad ng pagnanakaw lang ng items that are
Bread
not
or,
very
yeah.
expensive, for instance, shoplifting ng hindi naman
Kamahalan. No?
oo, kamahalan. Then, diversion proceedings yung tawag dyan. So, this is just to clarify kasi baka naman yung viewers there, pagka naging victim kayo ng crime then involving a minor, magtataka kayo, bakit dinidismiss? It's not necessarily dismissal, katulad ng
Minsan may
in-enlighten ni Judge Elissa
minsan may
kanina.
diversion lang.
Oo,
May
it might have been just diversion proceedings.
Correct. So yun. So the operative word there is by discernment. No? Kung may if it's determined na meron that the child between 15 to 18 committed the crime with discernment, so pwedeng merong criminal liability. And it's important to point out, it's good to point out also that when you catch someone, kunyari yun nga, may nahuli kayo, no? Na even if you know he's only 12 or 13, important pa rin na pa-blotter nyo. Dapat pa rin mag-report sa police and you have a record of it. Even if you know that there's no criminal liability, it's still important to have that
you know,
record.
this is a very useful topic kasi nga, di ba, recently may hazing na naman. And if you read the news, may bago na naman apart from the
that's right.
one in ano. So, this can happen because some colleges below 18 pa yung mga students or even high schools, may iba may fraternity. So, this is how you report these types of offenses. Don't expect a court proceeding, but then you still can get a police blotter and then they would have to undergo either diversion proceedings or intervention proceedings, depende kung ano yung mas appropriate.
And the process nga, normally, yun nga, if you bring it to the barangay, normally lupon ng may jurisdiction dyan, and after that, from the barangay, they bring them to the police. Police then brings the child to the DSWD. So yun yung process doon. No? All right? Okay, we hope we were able to clarify all your questions with regards to children in conflict with law. Now, over the week, we have received some questions from viewers on topics we have previously discussed, like this one sent by Maui. My employer keeps deducting contributions from our salaries, but does not remit these to the SSS, PhilHealth, and the like. What should I do? Oh, yeah. Definitely you can report that. You can report that to
so
SSS.
for instance, for SSS, you report your employer directly to SSS. So what SSS will do is to check yung they will actually give you yung mga benefits that you are entitled to, but they will run after your employer. So it's not going to be your problem anymore. SSS will go after your employer, and your employer will also be subjected to penalties sa SSS. Same goes with PhilHealth.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have also received some comments from our viewers. Alda has posted this on our Facebook page. I am a BS in social work student, and I am an avid fan of your show. I learned a lot from your show, especially from episodes related to my course. More power, Legal HD.
Wow,
thank you so much. That's very touching.
Yeah, very touching, and especially our episode now. Yeah, social work, no? It's very
Yeah, that's
important.
true.
Yeah.
Maybe she or he can consider doing some social work
Yeah,
related
just like
to
you.
children in conflict with
You
them.
are a good example.
That's a very good
Yeah.
experience.
No, you should take me there. You should take me there to yung
Oh,
mga-
I'll take you inside. Sa
mga-
prison,
it's very-
tsaka sa,
it's something
sa,
that's
sa courts.
It's something that's very I think we should do. We
Kasi,
should all do it.
diba,
You know?
yung
Kasi
may sinasabi na pag-asa ng bayan,
children are
how
future.
can you, that's
yeah,
true.
yun nga, kaya nga tawag bahay pag-asa. No? So good work. And to all of you who are out there trying to help these poor children, again, they are the hope of the nation. So you kind of help them rather than punish. No, you try to rehabilitate them. They didn't want to use that word, but to really to convert them and change them to become better citizens. All right, that's all the time that we have for tonight. We would like to thank our viewers who sent us their questions via social media. If you have any questions, send them to our Facebook and Twitter pages. I'm Attorney Rodney Pumaseno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you missed any of our previous episodes, you may watch these at your convenience anytime, anywhere by downloading the Solar News Channel app from Google Play and the Apple App Store. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights. Good night.